Okay, so I'm just doing a playthrough of the Maiden, which is the demo of the Village, the new Resident Evil. So I have just escaped the cell. Let's just say... Okay, so lockpicking in a barrel of blood, kind of, this is very much the tropes of a Resident Evil game or an old style Resident Evil game, whereas it's kind of almost humorous. So things like the buzzing, there's somebody in there with you, which obviously stresses you out. Things falling over means you're making noise, that also stresses you out, as we can see by me swinging around wildly. So there's definitely somebody down there with us, but again, this was a bit confusing for me because I wasn't sure which direction the noise was supposed to be coming from. Okay, so the lockpick in the bucket of blood. Okay, so this is kind of some really beautiful Quixel mega scans, I presume. So, you know, really, as a team, they're not going to have enough time to, unless they've got a team of 7,000, to build all the rooms like this. So I'm kind of presuming that this is the future of 4K gaming, which is Quixel mega scans, where you effectively have a kind of high poly mesh with a photogrammetry scan textures. So we've got a kind of European castle vibe, which is very Hammer House of Horror. So a bit odd in respect of the last game, which was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre style 7. So that's a classic horror technique, the character moving around in the room you're moving towards. So obviously there's some very bad things happening where you put a person inside a barrel and their hands are wobbling about as they die. Another typical kind of Resident Evil scene where you're finding deeply unpleasant items which you're examining. A very similar thing happened in 7, where you were examining rotting meat on tables and such like. It's kind of all adding to a general feeling of uneasiness and unpleasantness and corruption. I mean, this is pretty cliched as far as settings go. And it does somewhat undermine the horror because it's not really contemporary, whereas Resident Evil 7 was contemporary. It was in a contemporary setting, you were in a house that you kind of recognised. Again, claustrophobic spaces, is there going to be something at the other end? In this case, no. Although you are locked to that camera view, so you can't look right, which is a bit worrying. So again, because it's Resident Evil, you kind of get the sense this is a downtime section. It's definitely me playing, looking completely the wrong way. And again, the kind of the note's been left around, so it's kind of it's a bit odd, obviously, finding these very simple letters lying around in what is effectively a photorealistic world, but it's supposed to again be upping the tension. There's something in there with you, something that is killing people, something that's corrupt, something that's almost certainly a vampire because there's blood everywhere. Locking to steps again, with blood spattered down them. Means that you feel disempowered. I never quite worked out what this rope was. Somebody was escaping and then that's the shoe maybe. Okay, and we're out into Quixel world. So yeah, I can't understate how kind of amazing this looks. You get a real sense of being there. Again, readability wise, you know, when you're actually scanning real world items, you know, which ones open and which ones don't, you'd obviously expect to be able to open a cupboard, or at least have a locked noise. So there we are again. So the sound effects telling you there's somebody in there with you, and obviously whoever's in there with you is not going to take kindly to you messing about in their antechambers. So again, at this point in horror games, with this sort of downtime, and you know there's something in there, that you start to expect something's going to happen because you've had quite a long period of downtime. So this will be scanned from a real building. I kind of believe this is almost certainly a real place, which again does tend to cause some slight issues with working out where you are when it all looks the same. Again, so now we're getting closer. We know something's. You have to go through that door, and we know that there's something beyond it. Strangely, that wasn't really scary for me. Little set piece, little scripted event. Again, you know, just amazing. So, you know, this is always the hub section that we see in all Resident Evil games. In this case, it looks ever so slightly nicer than back on the PS1. Lots of corners, lots of obstructions to your line of sight. Means you don't know what's lurking beyond your line of sight. So a fairly classic Resident Evil puzzle. So from my own experience, I do tend to remember bad things happening in these hub areas, probably from the Resident Evil VR. So that's the kind of locked noise that I'm talking about with regards to readability. So, you know, it's probably better to put that on all doors so that you know that they are locked. I'm talking about things like the cupboard door, just helps with immersion. Just checking out the mega scans. So it's all a bit campy, you know, so it's not really that intimidating at the moment, although obviously there's quite a lot of killing been happening. Again, there's your other boot. Blood, obviously. Rejects. So somebody's been choosing particular characters and destroying others. These are like the clothes I'm wearing, so obviously this could be your fate. Again, it's just setting up the fact that you're in great danger, or something's toying with you. You know, the laugh infers something's toying with you, so you know that something is observing you and messing with you, and hence you're waiting for it to attack, hence the enormous tension. Tension probably undermined by just the fact you want to keep pottering around looking at all the amazing megascan photogrammetry and general environment. So again, that's something that exists in a real world space, but in a game you tend to think you can get in there. Blood spatter, something bad's been happening beyond that door. Amazing looking room. So readability again with regards to the locked noise. Interaction. Interaction on the UI. Icon on the UI. Again, you know, there's always a little bit when things aren't, there isn't demarcation between pickupable objects and non-pickupable objects, which is difficult to kind of describe in a photorealistic environment. So, you know, you can pick that up, but you can't pick up the bottle next to it. So So it's just really classic Res Evil puzzles in this amazing environment. So now you're really expecting something to happen. You can hear the footsteps. Now you see again, that is a case of the character being in proximity to the monster, being in proximity to the enemy, which is supposed to kind of really make you stressed out. So you know you need to make sure the player and the monster are close together at some point. But in that case, I don't know, it's just not really that intimidating, because obviously she knows you're there, but it's just ignoring you. Okay. The old separate the items Res Evil puzzle. So you know, it's kind of, I almost want to see the character. I suppose part of the pleasure of Resident Evil games, you know, certainly from Resident Evil 4 onwards, is the animations of the character, the ways the character dies. It's almost a reward in Resident Evil 4, the different death animations.